Udah lega. Hello? 1 second. Hello? Hello? Ah. These are very interesting. Very details. Habits. Weird things.
Be sharing this with you, but listen closely before it gets taken down. The IRS is giving Americans additional sentence on only a few more days. Anyone that makes less than $50,000 a year will claim their $1,400 a month for health credits and everyday expenses today.
So this is the story of majority of the spiritual seekers. Oh, does it mean to say I must be only here, there? That's not. Majority, as you might say. The priority is set. Slowly, everything within you will slowly organize itself in that direction. Because the priority is shifting, this life does not know which way to go. It's just confused.
There was a time when I first came to this that just looked at people and burst into tears. Just years of tears. Right here I am exploding with ecstasy. People are walking around with long faces. And it's there in them also. I can see it right there. But they are going about totally unaware of it. I would just cry. I see people, tears would come. You see that you seem to be, you're not that sure about it, but you seem to be something more than this body and this mind. You're not sure, but it seems like that, isn't it? So would you like to know what it is? Why should I know? Well, you feel like that, feel life knocks you upon your head. Suppose you have to die next moment. You will die one day, you notice? Huh? You will die one day. I am not wishing. You will anyway die. I will bless you with a long life, but still you will die. With my blessing, without my blessing, you will still die. Is it okay? You will die. Suppose that death is next moment. Will you go joyful? Now, why should I liberate myself? This is not my idea or your idea. The life is always longing to go beyond limitations. Whatever is your present limitation, liberate yourself from that. Whatever is your present compulsion, liberate yourself from that. You will notice there's a next level of compulsions. You liberate yourself from that, you will notice the next level of compulsion. If you liberate yourself continuously like this, some point there must be a point where there is no other compulsion for you. Is it your desire to live in limitations and compulsions? You can settle for it because you don't have the energy to go. You may say, this is okay. If I just lock you up in this hall, if you're tired and sick, you can settle just 2 minutes a day to me. I don't mind, I will sleep here only, no problem. But you're under an agitation. Now you want to do something, you want to dig through the earth and go away. If you lost all enthusiasm and energy for life, you will say, Sadhguru, throw some food at me, I will just sleep here for the rest of my life. I don't want liberation, I don't want nothing, I don't want to step out on the street. Just give me some food, I will sleep here, lie down here and die. That is if you lost it all. If life is throbbing within you, you are not willing to settle for that, isn't it? Yes or no? So if life is throbbing within you, you are not willing to live within any limitation or any comfort, it doesn't matter how pleasant it is. If I decorate this very good and give you good food, don't go anywhere, you will be locked right here. Very good food, well decorated space, you can't go anywhere. Will you stay here? No. If you are sick and tired, you will stay. If you are alive and energetic, you will not stay, isn't it? That's all. If you're alive and energetic, liberation is a natural longing. If you're sick and tired, limitations are okay as long as somebody gives me something and hang around and go.
Are you struggling to afford rent, gas, groceries, and bills? Picture getting up to $1,400 every month to help with all your important health needs. In a way, I'm getting paid $1,400 a month to take care of my basic health needs. If you earn less than $50,000 per year, you can also qualify for this benefit too. Just imagine you and your family also enjoying up to $1,400 per month in benefits, because it's entirely possible. It might seem unbelievable, but let me show you how to claim these benefits you may be eligible for in just 30 seconds. Recently, the President signed an executive order extending a health program that now allows 86% of Americans to qualify until 2025. Despite being rarely advertised, millions of Americans can now qualify for monthly health benefits ranging from $400 to $1,400 every single month. To claim this limited opportunity, click the blue button below this video. You'll be directed to a web.
Doesn't matter, with one more life or no more life. This is not important that you go beyond your limitations and your compulsions. This is not somebody's concept. This is the knowing of every line. Either it's my conscious expression or unconscious. That's all the question. You have no choice to decide whether I want to be free or not. You have no choice whether I want liberation or not. You anyway long for it. If you long for it consciously, you may find fulfillment. If you long for it unconsciously, you will do all kinds of freaky things. In the name of freedom, you will get drunk. In the name of freedom, you will do drugs. In the name of freedom, you will jump off the mountain and smash yourself. People have done all these things in pursuit of freedom, haven't they? Sure. But if you do it consciously, you may find fulfillment. If you do it unconsciously, you may get lost in the process. I'm just talking about doing your life consciously. I'm not talking about doing something else. I'm just talking about doing the same life process as consciously as possible. Because if you do it consciously, you find fulfillment. In some way, not the real thing.
Yours hasn't arrived yet. You aren't registered for your $3,300 allowance. All seniors are urged to phone by the end of today. If you don't make the deadline, these funds will be forfeited.
As the lights are flickering, the lights are on, they're off, an officer approaches me very quickly, and she grabs me. And she's wearing nothing that indicates she's an officer. And again, I hadn't met her. She never alerted me she was in the room. Her face is covered with a mask. And she tells me very quickly, trying to pull me along, as more people are filtering into the room. She says, "Come with me, I'm with the police." And I didn't believe her. Why would I believe her, right? So I was very hesitant, I was reluctant, but truthfully I had no other choice at this point because we were being rushed at the front of the room. So we kind of navigate out of the room. We're only met with more protesters once we get into the hallway. We couldn't even come out of the door of the classroom because there were so many people filtering in that we had to go out this back door that led us to another classroom to get out that way. To which when we got to the hallway, you look down to the staircase, there's hundreds of people. You look down to the other staircase, of course, which is your exit path to get out of the building, and it's hundreds of people. So ultimately, we had no other choice than this officer led me to another room along that same hallway where I was barricaded for 3 hours, over 3 hours, which was interesting. It was, I mean, you, in those moments, in those hours, you fear for your life.
Hello everyone. Today I'm speaking with American athlete, top-ranking swimmer, and now campaigner for genuine female rights, Riley Gaines. In this conversation, we're going to cover her career thus far, how she's navigated leadership positions in female sports, and otherwise, how those sports are being co-opted by men claiming to be women, the ideological capture they're in, and of course, her recent experiences at San Francisco State University. Hi, Riley. I understand that it's about 4 in the morning there in Nashville. I'm in Portugal, so, time zone trouble. It's real good of you to stay up so damn late and agree to talk to me and to everybody else here. So let's start with this. Let's talk a little bit about your life over the last couple of years. Like, what does your life consist of? I presume you're studying and you're aiming at something. You're also an athlete. So tell me how your life should be, let's say, and what you're aiming at and how your life actually is. And then we'll start talking about what happened to you most recently in San Francisco State.
Absolutely.
So what have you been up to the last 2 years while you were, pursuing the pathway, let's say, of a normal person?
I had every intention of finishing my collegiate career of swimming, graduating, and going to dental school. That's always been my passion, was dentistry. Specifically, I wanted to be an endodontist, which is someone who performs root canals, essentially. I graduated with a degree in human health sciences and health law from the University of Kentucky. I was set to be in dental school this year, but with everything that really happened, and I know we'll dive into that, I really realized that dental school, that's something that will always be there, but the relevance and the importance behind the issue we're going to talk about, it's not going to always be there. And I understood if someone with the same powerful testimony that I have, the same voice, someone who's unafraid to speak the truth, doesn't stick up for this, I really just saw what's at stake. And so I put my life on hold for a year. I reapplied for dental school in the fall. I'm set to go to the University of Tennessee, but I'm still kind of wavering with the idea of if that's right for me at this time.
Right. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about, well, your performance as a student, but then also your athletic career. So what makes you, what makes you a credible competitive swimmer? And then off of that, what makes you a credible voice for, let's say, athletes in general, but for female athletes in particular? So how good an athlete are you? What's your record? And what are your credentials?
So I've accomplished some really amazing things that I'm really proud of over my career. I qualified for Olympic trials in 2016. I was only 15 years old at the time, so I was one of the youngest ones there. Again in 2020, which translated into 2021 because of COVID and such. I have won 5 SEC championships. I'm a 12-time NCAA All-American. I'm the SEC record holder in the 200 butterfly, which means...
And what is that? That's SEC, did you say?
Yes, it's the Southeastern Conference. So, which is the most powerful conference in my opinion. Of course, I'm biased. But I am the SEC record holder in the 200 butterfly, which means under this shirt I have really big shoulders that I tried to cover with my hair, making me one of the fastest Americans of all time in the event. So I've really done some incredible things that I will forever be proud of. These are memories I can always look back on. And I think that's what gives me the credibility in my sport. What gives me the credibility that allows me to use my voice and be heard is the fact that I have firsthand experience competing against a male. I got to personally witness and experience the injustice that we face. I felt the effect that this infringement had on myself and my teammates, and how this affected us, how it affected our performance, how it affected our health, our mental health, and what that looked like from our perspective as female athletes who were directly impacted.
The content I've created over the past year represents some of my best to date, as I've undertaken additional extensive exploration in today's most challenging topics, and experienced a nice increment in production quality, courtesy of DataWare Plus. We all want you to benefit from the knowledge gained throughout this adventurous journey. I'm pleased to let you know that for a limited time, you're invited to access all my content with a 7-day free trial at DataWare Plus. This will provide you with full access to my new in-depth series on marriage, as well as guidance for creating a life vision, and my series exploring the book of Exodus. You'll also find the complete library of all of my podcasts and lectures. I have a plethora of new content in development that will be coming soon exclusively on DataWare Plus. Voices of reason and resistance are few and far between these strange days. Click on the link below if you want to learn more. And thank you for watching and listening. Okay, so let's delve into, people aren't going to know this, so you were competing at extremely high level on the athletic front, and you know, I've worked with some stellar athletes as a clinician, and I've worked with lots of people who were at the top of their game professionally, let's say, and usually what that takes on the professional front is something like, well, extreme ability, extreme native ability in whatever area happens to be under consideration, and then dedication that goes.
$69 US Special Forces device turns men into beasts. It emulates 54,000 crunches in
above and beyond the norm. And so the typical great scientist, for example, is absolutely 100% obsessed with what they do. It's a 16-hour day job, essentially 7 days a week, generally for decades. It's the only way that you get to the top of a profession, let's say, or an endeavor that has any degree of rank order by merit and competitiveness, right? You have to be as able as anyone else or more able, but then you have to be dedicated beyond, well, far beyond the norm, because otherwise you're not going to be at the top. So when did you start swimming, and what did you have to do on the discipline front? And also, I suppose, what sacrifices did your family make to make that possible so that you could compete at this level?
So I started swimming when I was 4 years old. I am 22, so I've dedicated 18 years of my life to my sport. By the time I was 8 years old, that's when I really started, I transitioned to swimming year-round. So this meant that in second grade, you're swimming 2 hours every single day, and it really only gets harder from there, because by the time you get to middle school and high school, you're practicing before school, then you go straight to school, and straight from school you go back to practice. After practice, you go home, you eat your dinner, you do your homework, you ice your shoulder, you go to bed, but you wake up and do it all again the next day. And I love what you said about being willing. No one forced us to do this, but we knew that's what you had to do to compete at that top level. I was very blessed.
Why in the world did you do it? I mean, you know, there's a lot. Well, first of all, it's a very focal application of time and energy over a very long period of time, right? And you could argue that there's many things to do in life, and why concentrate so obsessively on that single thing? What was it about your family, your situation, your psychology, or your ability that made this attractive to you? Why did you spend so much time and energy?
I think a couple things. I come from a family of athletes. My dad, he was an SEC football player and went on to play in the NFL. All of my uncles they played in the NFL for 10 plus years. They've won Super Bowls, done really incredible things. My youngest brother, who's in college playing football. My mom, she was a Division I softball player. So I think sports is something that I've always been almost infatuated by. And it's weird because swimming, of course, there's not necessarily a good word to describe it other than it's treacherous. it's miserable, but in the best way. So it is an interesting dynamic. It is truly this love-hate relationship. You love the team. I love setting goals. I love achieving goals. I love winning. And in a sense, I loved practicing. Of course it's painful. It's hard. You wake up at 5 a.m. to go swim 3 hours right before you go to class all day. There's a lot of, I'll say, negatives that go into competing and training at this level. But the positives, they outweigh the negatives tenfold. There's no better feeling than achieving your goal, winning. I think I'm this person who's driven, I'm competitive, and I think a lot of that stems from my family, from growing up with 3 siblings who were always on each other's backs. But it's a blessing. I'm very fortunate for really how I grew up and how my parents raised me.
Okay, so there was a lot of value in your family placed on athletic accomplishment, but then also on, you talked about 2 fundamental sources of motivation, and I would say both of those sources of motivation have come under heavy criticism in recent years. The pleasure that you take, let's say, in achieving goals, that's associated with ambition, and as our culture has been torn apart by this current state of ideological idiocy, people have done everything they can to identify ambition, or let's say that desire for achievement, both with ambition and with dominance and with power. And then you also make a case for enjoying winning, and there are movements in the education field that have been, bandied about probably for a century, but particularly since the 1960s, predicated on the insistence that all competition is intrinsically wrong, and that any endeavor that requires the victory of one and the defeat of many, let's say, which is typically the case, is somehow inappropriate and maybe even at its base immoral. And I suppose that critique can be extended to the whole free market enterprise, where there are clear winners and losers in different domains. So why do you think, and why has this been true for you personally, why do you think that it's a valid ethical endeavor to be ambitious and to attempt to achieve these high-order goals? And why is it, do you think, that it's appropriate to take pleasure in both competition and competitive victory?
I don't look at ambition as something that's selfish. I have had my fair share, of course, I am an ambitious person. Again, I like to achieve my goals, but there are many times where I've fallen short of achieving my goals. So it sounds as if, you're doing this to win, to compete at that high level and whatever that looks like. But I take value in not achieving my goals. How can we build from that? How can we continue to use your failures, your shortcomings, as a way to continue building up? So as much as I do take value in winning, I think there's a certain aspect to losing that is also beneficial and has really thrusted me into the position that I'm in. That it's given me the confidence to do what I'm doing, the leadership, the security, to take the arrows that I've been taking. And so I think it's a balance. Being ambitious.
Yeah, well, that's a really good point, on the resilience front, because one of the things that people need to do to develop in their life is, well, you could say grace in victory, but you can also say grace and resilience in defeat. And the reason for that is that as we progress through life, as you pointed out, on all fronts, things are not always going to turn out the way we want them to turn out. And we're going to all suffer harsh defeats of one form or another, sometimes justly and sometimes unjustly. And because of that, one of the things that we need to learn, and to learn early, is how to take defeat in stride. Now, you made a case that not only did you learn to take it in stride, but that you also learned how to extract value, let's say, from your failures, so that you could then proceed to a new level of striving and attainment. When we see someone who's a good sport, and generally that's someone who we might spontaneously admire, we see someone who doesn't take too much, who doesn't try to become vainglorious, let's say, as a consequence of winning, but even more importantly, that can take a defeat in good humor to learn from it and to move forward nonetheless. And the reason we admire that is because we all need to learn how to do that. And you do learn that in the context of competition. If the competition is structured fairly and as a consequence of specific merit, let's say, which is clearly the case in an athletic realm.
Absolutely.
So, right. So it's, do you think now, you think that, you said that you made a lot of sacrifices on the time and energy front, let's say, to engage in this competitive enterprise, but that the rewards, despite the effort, the rewards were much greater than the cost of the sacrifice. So, and you've alluded to some of the rewards. You said that you've been able to discipline yourself and push yourself, and you've also got resilient in the face of defeat, which is crucially important. How do you think that's generalized to the rest of your life? And do you think that's typically the case for people who engage in athletic competition? Like, what do you think that does for people in general?
I think the higher you compete in terms of what level you're competing at athletically, whether that be high school, then college, and then whatever sport that you may be doing, Olympic level, I think the higher you compete, the more benefits you reap, typically. You learn more about determination, grit, resiliency. Of course, you are able to, the athletic achievements continue as well, but the lifelong skills and characteristics you develop outside of just the athletic achievements, these are skills that will translate far beyond that into your whole life, forever. And that's something, again, that I'm witnessing in myself. I think if I didn't play sports, if I didn't have that sense of teamwork, that sense of, I was team captain at University of Kentucky for 2 years, so if I didn't have that sense of leadership, accountability really, I think accountability and responsibility is a good word, then I don't think I would feel confident enough to take a public stance in the way that I have this past year, which it sounds silly because my stance is so simple and it's rooted in of course, truth and common sense and science and logic, reasoning, all the things. So it sounds silly to say I might not have the confidence and leadership and the security in and of myself to take the arrows that I'm taking if it weren't for sports. I really do accredit that to being an athlete. There was an Ernst & Young study that said I think 94% of C-level executives, so CEO, CFO, COO, that are females were once female athletes. And I think that shows how the skills that you develop translate far beyond your sport.
Yeah, well, it might seem silly in one sense for you to make any claims to the necessity for training for just saying the things you're saying, but there aren't that many people saying the things you're saying in as public a manner as you're saying them. And so obviously there's difficulties there that are beyond the typical person's, athlete or not, the typical person's ability to withstand. So even if the topic is in some ways surreal, it's definitely the case that it's unlikely that people are going to take a public stance. Now, and so you said you learned to have a certain degree of confidence in yourself, but also to be able to tolerate a certain amount of stress as a consequence of this highly competitive training. But I would also ask you, you were the team captain, you said, for a number of years. And so what do you think the attributes, what are the necessary attributes of a team captain? Now, obviously you have to be very skilled athletically and competitive, and that means that you're striving for victory, you're striving to be the best on your team, you're striving to break the appropriate records. But you have to modify that, obviously, if you're team captain. And so, like, how did you reconcile the demands to be the best on the team with the necessity of being a team leader? And what did you have to learn in order to be an effective captain?
I think the thing that I knew I wanted to implement as a captain, my team at University of Kentucky, there was 40 girls. Obviously, when you're dealing with 40 girls, there's a lot of different personalities, there's a lot of different ways people communicate, how they handle situations, how they deal with pressure, how they like to be motivated. And so, as a captain, number one, I wanted to be someone that everyone felt like they could talk to. Again, when you're dealing with 40 girls, of course there's cliques. There's people on the team who are best friends. There are other people who don't necessarily like each other. You work together, but you won't be friends outside of your sport. And so I wanted to be someone who could unite everyone in a sense. I don't want to make anyone be friends with someone they don't want to be friends with, but how can we come together to achieve our goals? And what that looks like in terms of communication, which again, I'm seeing that translate now into my life and how I deal with what I'm dealing with. But I think communication is huge. Two, I think what strived me to help us all achieve our goals, our goals we set as a team, was to constantly remind the team of the goals we set. I think it's very often in sports where you talk about big things and then you kind of forget about it. When it comes championship season or whatever that looks like, you're not geared up to achieve what you've set because you haven't worked towards it, really. You talk about it, but talking about it isn't enough. So in practice, I would constantly remind people, hey, this is the goal you set for yourself personally, which can help us achieve our goals as a team. Don't forget that. And I always saw them.
Right, so that's that alignment. Well, one of the most effective leadership strategies, although I hate to reduce it to a strategy because it's more than that, is to produce an organization predicated on the intrinsic alignment of interests, right? And so what you really want if you set up an organization is you want each person pursuing a goal that they personally value and so are willing to work for and to sacrifice for and to dedicate themselves to. And then you want each of those goals to be serving a superordinate goal that unites and moves the entire team ahead. And then you don't have to use coercion and so forth. And you can imagine if you're doing that, helping each athlete become the best they can be on the personal level for whatever personal gain they might manage in terms of being more resilient and in terms of achievement status and all of those things, comparative status. You're also doing the same thing for the team, and you can see you can understand without much effort how useful that would be in executive management, for example. Like I work with a number of extraordinarily good managers in the business realm, especially on the legal front, and then also in academia. And the really great managers, they had a very light touch. They tended to go around and remove problems before they started, and so it often looked like they were doing almost nothing. But they were also extremely good at aligning people's interests so that everybody was moving in the same desirable direction. And so what do you think you did badly on that front and had to learn to do better, and what do you think you did well?
I think the things I did well were the things I mentioned. Especially as a woman, it's difficult to hold each other accountable. Typically women, they don't like to be assertive in that way. They think it's mean, they take it personal. And so something I always tried to do well was hold people accountable in a way that made them want to do better. And I think that falls along with, again, helping people develop personally to reach those team goals. Which again, I don't think even a male can understand necessarily how especially a group of 40 women, that dynamic is hard to navigate. And so holding people accountable, I think, is crucial, and I feel as if I did that relatively well. What I think I could have probably improved on is being a little more understanding. It's hard for me to put myself in someone else's shoes sometimes, to consider what they have going on outside of the sport, because we truly did put so much of our identity, so much of our self-worth into our sport that I oftentimes would forget to look at anything other than what's going on in the sport. If someone was having a bad practice, it was very quick for me to get snippy at them without remotely thinking about other factors that could contribute to the bad practice, whether that be sleep, diet, school.
That's a hard psychological dynamic, and you made a sex-specific comment there too that we could delve into. Well, if you're focused on a particular goal and you're competitive and achievement-oriented and you want to win, then your focus tends to narrow to that particular domain, right?
Absolutely.
What that means is that you'll sacrifice other interests and concerns for that particular, what would you say, ability to progress along that particular axis. And as you said, well, that can come across as harsh. Now, on average, women are more agreeable than men. And so that means, on average, they're less harsh, at least overtly. And, you know, it's an open question, and I don't think anybody knows exactly how to answer this question. Then what effective leadership on the female front looks like. Now, you faulted yourself, and I would say you faulted yourself in some sense for taking a more masculine perspective on those sorts of group endeavors, because it's typical among men for a group of men to concentrate on the goal at hand and to say, to hell with all the other concerns, which is something like, don't bring your bloody troubles to work, just do your damn job. Now, you made the point that that was perhaps differentially challenging when working with women. You think, why do you think that? Why isn't that just a sexist claim, for example? I mean, why do you think that's the case? Where have you run into that? How would you justify it? And what did you do about it?
Right. Yeah, this is solely based off my experiences. At the University of Kentucky, of course, there's a men's team and a women's team. My husband now, who I've married, he was on the men's team at Kentucky. Just watching their interactions, watching how they can communicate with each other, brush it off, come back to the next practice and be totally fine. That doesn't work with girls. Again, based solely off of my experiences, this isn't to overgeneralize, this is to share exactly what I have seen firsthand. Girls tend to be more moody, they tend to not take constructive criticism as well, whether that be from the coach or from other teammates or from whoever. But the men, on the other hand, especially at the University of Kentucky, which again I was able to witness, they could get on each other's backs, they could say personal things to each other that even didn't necessarily apply to their sport when they were getting on one another. As women, there would be catfights if we did that, which again sounds silly, but that's truthfully what I experience on a day-to-day basis.
Whether you're feeling stressed, anxious, or simply seeking a moment of peace and tranquility, the Hallow app has something for you. Hallow offers an incredible range of guided meditations and prayers that are designed to help you deepen your spirituality and strengthen your connection to God. With Hallow, you can explore different themes and types of prayer and meditation, such as gratitude, forgiveness, and centering prayer. You can also choose from different lengths of meditation to fit your schedule, whether you have a few minutes or an hour. With its user-friendly interface and hundreds of guided meditations, the Hallow app has quickly become a go-to resource for people. You can set transformative and will promote the Hallow app Flash short and free trial.
Well, you know, so one of the temperamental differences between men and women is that difference in agreeableness, let's say. And so there's less of a tendency for overt conflict among women. Now, that doesn't mean there's less of a tendency for covert conflict, and actually what you do see is that antisocial women, like the ones who can't cooperate well and who can't work together as a team, they use underground strategies like reputation savaging and gossip to, what you say, promulgate their aggressive behavior. Now, men are much more likely to do that up front, and there's some simplicity in that. But also women have a proclivity to experience more negative emotion than men, and so for each unit of stress, they manifest more psychophysiological response. That seems to kick in around puberty, and so that additional, call it volatility is the technical term, that's an aspect of trait neuroticism, by the way. That volatility also, that increased volatility also makes it more difficult, arguably, for women to brush things off the same way that men who are cooperating in a team might. And I mean, the reason I'm talking about this, by the way, and delving into this is because we are going to get into the topic of sex and gender very soon, because, well, that's where we're headed, given that that's the root of the conflict that's made itself manifest around you. And so it's useful to establish and to start to explore the territory that's relevant with regard to sex differentiation. Now, obviously, when you were competing, you weren't competing in a co-ed situation.
Right.
It was women competing against women and men competing against men, and it's been set up like that for a long time. So, given the things in our society for radical equality, both in actuality and as a desirable outcome, first of all, do you think that there's what is, if any, the justification for not making all sporting events, let's say, radically co-ed?
Well, because I think we know how this would turn out. Time and time again, regardless of the sport, regardless of if it's an individual sport, a team sport, what that might look like. We've seen example after example where a mediocre male or mediocre men's team, nowhere near ranking the top. Let's say this could be nationally, this could be whatever level you're comparing here. Unanimously, these men's teams, they don't like women. So having a co-ed team, that would not be beneficial to women by any means. So I think that's why I believe there's value to having co-ed instructional teams when you're younger, when you're learning. But once you've gone through that puberty, it's irreversible. Men are, of course, on average taller, faster, stronger, more powerful. They jump higher. There's so many different attributes, advantages that they have in comparison to women. And so I think co-ed teams, in a sense, if that's what you're looking for, of course there's value to it. But at the competitive level, where you're competing again to win, that's what your goal is. Having men compete against women is very obvious. It's unfair.
Okay, so let me push this. I'm going to push this as far as I can push it, because things are being pushed in our culture as far as they can be pushed. So we might as well go in for a penny and in for a pound. I could say, well, why don't we just scrap women's sports altogether? Like, if the goal is faster, stronger, better, more powerful, and on average that's not happening in the female domain, why don't we just give up the entire enterprise on the female sports end and just let the men take over the playing field? If that's the point, if the point is to foster the highest possible level of performance.
To win.
So, what do you...
To say that men are stronger, to say that men are faster, taller, whatever, that's not to say that women are inferior. That's not to say that we're not capable of amazing things and we're not strong and we're not, again, all of those words I previously mentioned, but we have different physical ceilings. I believe we deserve to be celebrated on our uniqueness. That's what makes the women's sporting category special. And there are still phenoms in women's sports, just like there are in male sports. Look at Venus and Serena Williams. While by no means could they compete with the best male tennis player, they're phenomenal. They are, it's amazing what they've accomplished. They've set themselves apart from every other female in the world, and that deserves to be recognized. So to say we're different.
Let's delve into that. So, because you might say, well, there's two reasons for high-level competition, and let's say on the athletic front. One would be to extend the domain of what's possible in terms of performance and to model that for other people. And then you can make a case, well, you can make the case that the absolute records are the best example of that. So the fastest person in the world, the fastest swimmer in the world, and most of the time that's going to be men. But then you could make a more sophisticated case, which I believe is the proper case, that actually what you're doing as an athlete or as any expert in a competitive realm is modeling the ability to push the envelope and to further transform and develop. And unless you believe that that's less important for women, which is a preposterous thing to believe, then you have to believe that setting up a situation where women can push the envelope consistently in whatever directions they're pushing, you have to presume that that's a psychological good and a social good. And then you have to presume that the spaces where that can occur have to be protected. That also opens a can of worms, doesn't it, eh? Because since the 1960s in particular, we've blown off the barriers between men and women in terms of general participation in society, right? And so we've decided that all things considered, spaces isolated to a given sex are suboptimal, right? The schools are co-ed, the public schools, the universities are co-ed, all business enterprises are co-ed, so to speak. And then, of course, so that raises the question, well, should any domains be left sex segregated? If so, how do you walk the fine line between sex segregation for the purpose of facilitating development and sex segregation that turns into prejudice and oppression, right? Just rejection on the basis of sex. And then also the thorny question of, well, if most enterprises should be completely open to both sexes, which enterprises should be protected? Do you have any? Obviously, you believe that athletic performance, athletic competition per se, should be one of those protected categories. But do you have any sense of how we as a society should draw the line? It's like, are there spaces that should be male only? Like, one of the things I really wonder about, for example, I talked to Tulsi Gabbard about this a while back, is like, it isn't obvious to me at all that our society would benefit by having women in frontline combat.
Right.
Like, and it isn't that I can generate an immediate coherent argument for why I believe that. There's something about it that strikes me more deeply and emotionally, I suppose, there's something preposterous about that. Maybe it's partly because, look, it isn't obvious to me that professional frontline combat, that's pretty damn hard on anyone. That's even really hard on extremely well put together and extraordinarily strong and brave men. And so to also presume that that's going to be open to women just seems to me to be taking the whole bloody charade too far. Now, you could say, well, that I'm old-fashioned and prejudiced, although I don't actually think I'm either. But, it is a thorny question, right? It's like, well, if men and women are equal, then why should there ever be sex-segregated spaces of any sort? I mean, we're certainly seeing that on the bathroom front. We're seeing that on the change room front. We're seeing that on the athletic front. So where do you think that the line should be drawn so that there are female spaces and male spaces and that those are protected? And how do you think we manage that, like, legally and conceptually?
I think where any place where either of the sexes is vulnerable, whether that be in regards to privacy, in regards to safety, in regards to anything that relies on your physiology, because of course men and women are physiologically different. I think that's where that sex protection-based rights are important. So prisons, that's an area where women specifically are vulnerable. Of course, shelters, again, bathrooms, locker rooms. No woman should be subjected to having a male in that space. So I think it's areas where sex is important.
Okay, so it's something like there's a subset of areas where the fact of the biological difference between men and women becomes paramount.
Correct.
Right, and so those would be, well, in change rooms is a really good example of that. But you extended that also to, say, women's shelters and prisons and so forth. So there's something there that's sort of, what would you say, it's reminiscent of the idea of nakedness, I suppose, because you mentioned vulnerability, right? So when you're stripped down to your most vulnerable, that's when the segregation is most necessary. It's something like that, right?
I believe.
It seems that way.
Yeah, I believe there's value in understanding. I truthfully think anywhere where sex is relevant. There are certain places. Let's consider the workplace. There are certain places where sex isn't necessarily relevant. There are certain places where it are, and like how you mentioned military, that's a very good point. Men and women, there are differences there that would, again, make anything that requires sheer strength, make men be advantageous and make that more achievable. That's what we're wanting, right? We want to be this powerhouse. We want men at the forefront. So I think where sex plays a role, that's where we kind of have to draw that line. There are certain.
So it would be where the biological differences are germane, number one, to performance, like specifically germane to performance, but also number two, specifically germane to differential vulnerability. So anywhere where women are sexually vulnerable, or anywhere where the physical differences in performance actually have a substantive effect on the the performance itself. So here's an example. I mean, there's no evidence that men and women differ in IQ. There are micro differences in IQ, and some of them are arguably important in some micro domains, but overall, the evidence is quite clear that on average men and women have the same level of intelligence. And so then we might presume that in any domain where intelligence is the fundamental marker of potential merit, there should be no sex segregation. But if we're looking at something like, let's say, military battlefield rescue, that might be a good one, where physical strength and becomes a paramount marker of the actual ability to do the job, then sex-based discrimination starts to become appropriate and morally required. And then you could make the reverse case, which is, well, where women are particularly vulnerable on the sexual front, so that would be in locker rooms, for example, that's also a place where sex segregation is reasonable. So those are the basic rules, something like that.
Not just is it appropriate and morally responsible, it's beneficial. It's something that is good for the greater good of society in general. So yeah, I agree.
Okay. Well, that seems to be a reasonable set of rules of thumb. Okay, now let's talk about, I have one more question about the discipline that was required for you to become a high-level swimmer, because you said that the benefits were worth the cost, but I'd like to talk a little bit more about the costs. And the reason I'm curious about this is because we're going to talk about Leah Thomas soon, and we're going to talk about the entrance of men into the female competitive realm. And I want people to understand just exactly what's on the line here. So when you were in junior high, which is the time when teenagers start to become, say, more hypersocial, they're spending most of the time with their peers. They really care about that social time with their peers. They adjudicate almost all of their status and self-confidence in relationship to their peer relations. You're spending, 4 hours a day swimming. What did you have to give up in order, on the social front, let's say, maybe on the relationship front for that matter, what did you have to give up to pursue your single-minded devotion to your sport?
It's impossible to put into words what you have to give up. By no sense is this a normal childhood, shall we say. You don't get to go to prom, you don't get to go on vacations, you don't get to have sleepovers with your friends. And again, no one forced us to do this. My parents didn't force me to play my sport. It's just what I knew I had to do. And so it's, you pick one thing to prioritize. And for me, it was my sport. But there was a lot of social sacrifices. At the collegiate level, you're missing weeks of school at a time. So right there, you're sacrificing your education in a sense. We were very fortunate that we have resources like tutors and different things that help us not miss out too much. But the amount of things that are altered because of your sport, it's impossible to put into words. Again, my world essentially, all of our world competing at that level, it has to. There's no other option. It revolves around your sport. That is your priority, and everything else really falls in line behind. I missed out on funerals of loved ones because I couldn't leave college to go home, which sounds, of course, morbid. It sounds toxic. It sounds as if this is crazy. But again, that's just what you have to be willing to do, especially in a sport like swimming. Swimming is obviously unnatural for human beings. We don't have gills. It's not a natural ability. So taking a day off, that's not allowed, especially over COVID. This was a really hard time because, again, we never got sent home. I was at University of Kentucky all summer long. We were there over Thanksgiving. We didn't get to leave for Christmas. You never got to go home. You got a week off in August each year. But over COVID, of course, we did get sent home. This was a struggle, not just physically, but the amount of the toll this had on one mentally, naturally. You dedicated your life to your sport, suddenly, very abruptly, that's taken away. And so when we get sent home, no schools are open, no gyms are open. We got sent home 3 days before our national championships my sophomore year, so it felt as if we had trained all year to get to the fastest meet in the world, because that's what this meet is, especially short course. The fastest meet in the world, you train all year, all your life, you get sent home 3 days before. That was hard. That was a hard period of time. But being sent home, no pools, no gyms, nothing is open, constant stress. I was very fortunate to be from Tennessee where there's lots of lakes. So every day, my only option was to put on a wetsuit and swim miles aimlessly up and down the lake. That's all I knew I could do, because again, that's how dedicated I was, and that's not unique to me. It might be unique in a sense where I have lakes around me, but any of us competing at that level, if you're dedicated to achieving your goals, that's what you would do. So that's what I did every single day for months.
I like going exactly where I need to come from. With Moit, I know it's coming from small family farms all across the country. Moit delivers grass-fed, pork and chicken, sustainable wild caught Alaskan salmon, straight to your door. Moit lets you choose the meat delivered in every box. Select an existing box or create your own. Set your delivery keys and enjoy delicious meat. You can cancel anytime, but you won't want to. If you're not sure what you like, check out their standard box. It comes with a little bit of everything. Chicken, ribeye, burgers, and steak. Moit is all about supporting the family farm. Think about it this way. 2% of Americans are farmers. After receiving my first pick in the steak, my freezer full of delicious Moit's meat comes from wholesome American farmers. So keep America free bacon. That's my subscription. Come on. So.
Okay, so now we could let's take a look at your situation. So you're playing a game. You're playing this game of competitive swimming, and let's lay out the broader social rules. So the rules are something like this. Your contribution is the sacrifices you're willing to make and the discipline that you're willing to impose on yourself, and the leadership roles that you're willing to take on to help other people do the same thing. That's your contribution. Now, the game rule is that if you do your part, then you can compete against other people who are basically facing the same limits you are intrinsically, so those would be people of your sex, and then all of you are competing to transcend your limitations, to become better losers, to become better winners, to become more resilient people, to become more focused and disciplined. And that's the payoff for you. But all those rules have to apply fairly in order for that game to be justifiable. Now, you're objecting because some of that contractual bargain, let's say, was violated by the COVID prohibitions. But we're now going to turn to a more specific case. So the rules are you're competing against people who have the same limitations you are, so that all of your attempts to transcend your limitations are fair and then equally rewarded.
Take a tour of a place from the comfort of your phone.
Let's do this one last time. His name is Miles Morales.
I was bitten by a radioactive spider.
And he's not the only one.
Don't do that.
You gotta talk.
The multiverse is unraveling. You have a choice between saving one person and saving an entire world.
You do both. Miles, don't
exclusively in cinema.
My name is Miles Morales. I'm Brooklyn's one and only Spider-Man. And things are going great.
He's gonna be here and here.
Should be simple enough.
It's gonna be your murder.
So are you like a cow or a Dalmatian? I am Spot.
It's not funny.
Don't do that.
His brother's now, hold on.
I don't think I want this costume.
Oh, in a minute. Hey, look at all one word. You right, the youth.
How's this going?
Miles is great. They're pretty good. A's and A.
Not good for me.
And a B in Spanish.
Mira, es que imposible. I gotta go. All right, bye.
Miles!
When?
Wanna get out of here? Welcome to Spider Society.
I'm Spider-Man.
Oh, no way! All of us are pretty good.
Me? Miguel O'Hara.
It's like a ninja vampire Spider-Man, but he's got plus he's like such a good leader.
There's moments in our stories that are the same for all of us. Some good.
Did you bring our baby to another place?
I knew I was going to regret making her that one too.
He asked me not to, so I wouldn't. See that? You have a choice between saving one person and saving every world. To me, that's an obvious choice. Send me out. I can't do that.
I can do both.
All station, stop Spider-Man. You let me.
Everyone keeps telling me how my story is supposed to go. Nah, I'm gonna do my own thing. Can this take it weirder? I guess it can.
There's nowhere to run.
Sorry.
My bad, everybody. There was nowhere to run. My bad, everybody. There was nowhere to run.
Then, oh my god, she showed me her, like, she's not mad at it, she's in her, like, she was moving in, and then she just decided for me to share with her.
someone I recognize. I always stay. Ain't gotta turn on the lights, I take a shot in the dark. Rolling round after round, the feeling's holding my heart. And I got nowhere to go when it all falls down. Got nowhere to run when it all runs out. Drowning my sorrows with bottles, too intoxicated for me to take the high road. Since the whiskey came, I lost my way, lost myself in a drain. I got wasted 'cause I didn't want to deal with myself tonight. My thoughts get drowned until I feel alright. I keep drinking till I'm someone I recognize. I got wasted. I can never ever live without it. The numbness and the buzz that I get from it. I can never fall asleep without happiness. So many troubles and so much pain I can't deal with it. And I never feel what it's been like I keep on drinking one drink and lead to the hour. Pressure me 'cause I'm not what you know. I don't wanna deal war. Life is passing while I'm wasted on the floor. See, I've been drowning in a life without no passion, coping with this drink, and I know it's tragic. I wanna feel real life. I want some real kisses, feel the real touch. Find a real message till the fog is gone. When I'm at my witness, I'ma sober up. I'm gone. I got wasted 'cause I didn't wanna deal with myself tonight. My thoughts get drowned until I feel alright. I keep drinking.
I'm 5 years sober, so this comes from a really raw place. I hope this reaches someone that needs to hear it. You're not alone. You ever look back to a certain time and try to reminisce, and all you get is little flashes, a piece of the past, and as each year passed, we started realizing the only thing that lasts is the bottom of the glass, and we friendship's classic. Oh well, that shit happens. But what about when you can't even make it through the day and your hands start shaking, your girlfriend left and your parents praying for your safety, not just pray for the type that would make even atheists feel like it's something to fake. Maybe only God knows what it takes, maybe only I know how to break it, but I can't 'cause I'm casing the shell of a man right now. I don't really want to hear it. Hurt the people that are nearest, and it took my soul, that's why they call it spirits.
Because I didn't want to deal with myself tonight. My thoughts get drowned until I feel alright. I keep drinking till I'm someone I recognize. I got wasted.
At 14, I had my first OJ and vodka, thought I was so G. Back when they turning, I'm popping these pills, I'm mixing my drink with the codeine. But then I OD'd, should've listened when they told me. Now when I drink, I get to sending you these messages just 'cause I'm lonely. And it ain't 'cause I'm wasted, it's because I'm lost. I need you to go. And I don't know no other way to take away the pain I'm not alone.
I got wasted 'cause I didn't want to deal with myself tonight. My thoughts get drowned until I feel alright. I keep drinking till I'm someone I recognize. I got wasted.
Hey, and I'm really about to take it, go to. Get a little deep time to keep me on my rock too. I ain't got a time to, but I wish I got to. Soon I get money, anything but about you. And I'm talking about the drink and the liquor. Shut up for my brain, anything damn legal. All I do is drink, I drink, I drink, I drink. Take like 3, 4, 5 in a day, hey. I got a little problem, family problem, relationship problem. All I gotta do is just love it. Everybody trying to get me all fucked up. And I do no drugs, stop doing my car. Big hands, put it on top, hit me up with a rod. Call me on phone with a problem. Yeah, I'm running from my problem, but I know one
I got wasted 'cause I didn't want to deal with myself tonight. My thoughts get drowned until I feel alright. I keep drinking till I'm someone I recognize. I got wasted.
Get high, and I'm all alone. You call me when I come home, but I can't be your only remedy. Gonna save you, gonna kill me, so write it down. Put it in a song, hope you pour it out. We won't be left alone instead of getting wasted, wasting time, making something real. Turn your wasted power, helping other people.
I got wasted 'cause I didn't want to deal with myself tonight. My thoughts get drowned until I feel alright. I keep drinking till I'm someone I recognize. I got wasted.
I got wasted, shocked and I chased it. Wanted a taste, now it's my night that I'm wasting. It's been happening more and more. Start with one and then I'm pouring four. Now I'm stumbling through the corridor, crying out for anything except the level head. I've been fighting all these demons, but the spirits put them back to bed. I know they'll find me when I feel the hangover, 'cause they don't leave the man I am until he's sober.
I got wasted 'cause I didn't want to deal with myself tonight. My thoughts get drowned until I feel alright. I keep drinking till I'm someone I recognize. I got wasted.
Summer Shandy tastes like beer, lemonade, and summertime. Lining Kugels, flavor the moment.
Just one more shot of whiskey, then I'll put the bottle down. No more liquor, coffee is the best that I have found. And I know that you can't count me, 'cause I'm already dead. And I would do anything to drown these thoughts out my head. I'm messed up, fucked up, and I only disappoint. My mental health isn't carrying much a choice. Drunk in the crowd, getting lost in all the noise. If someone screams and no one hears, do they even have a voice?
center into my sorrow. Last far, but then tomorrow I'll be sober, but I can't take this moment I've been thinking. All my demons try to force it, I can't really wait. I got the tongue, you hit the wall until I breathe. Trapped in my thoughts until it's hard for me to breathe. I know it's hard for you to see, but the stick just gotta hold on. I got wasted cause I didn't want to deal with myself tonight. My thoughts get drowned until I feel alright. I keep drinking till I'm someone I recognize. I got wasted.
Look, I'm at the bottom of the bottle again. I be living through a life with a whole lot of sin. And I know I got a problem, I don't try to pretend. I be kicking it with Jack when I don't got a friend. I get wasted, sipping a beer, that's all I chase it. Go to the store and cop cases when I get drunk. I do not face it, I don't black out on many occasions. Even though it never feels good on the next day, I'ma still look forward to the next days. Turning to the bottom when I really need an escape. Even though I know it's probably leading to my death day. It's a vicious cycle that is genocidal. And it's taking friends and taking many idols. And I know that I really must stop if I wanna see the day that I'm sitting on top.
I got wasted cause I didn't want to deal with myself tonight. My thoughts get drowned until I feel alright. I keep drinking till I'm someone I recognize. I got wasted.
Sipping and get to the money, I'd rather be rich and be known to the bank. If you feel me, I think no one love me. You tell me it's only inside of my brain. Thought of myself and I try to explain. Drink to forgive me and how to maintain. If I feel for good and I try to refrain, and I gotta admit it, I'm drowning in pain. I don't wanna face it, rather go up and get wasted. Straight cause I'm trying to taste it. All of my problems, I'm trying to get better with time, but I'd rather be trying to be patient. Why would I chase it? Love I hate it when I face it. That's why I don't take you to places. I need to be when I'm deep in my feelings. I feel like I'm trapped, so I seem to escape.
I got wasted cause I didn't want to deal with myself tonight. My thoughts get drowned until I feel alright. I keep drinking till I'm someone I recognize. I got wasted.
I told myself I would never have a drink like this again. Despite the bottle that died, the ladies pulling me in. I'm on my drink from blacking out, so I would try to pretend. They got my feeling of buzz, but damn I'm wasted. The only time I feel alive is when I'm lit as a bitch. I said what it was said, but now I'm faded. I wouldn't be in this position, always feeling like shit. But when the alcohol hits, it feels amazing.
I got wasted cause I didn't want to deal with myself tonight. My thoughts get drowned until I feel alright. I keep drinking till I'm someone I recognize. I got wasted.
Another bottle to the face, licking on what I think, drowning in it, but nobody see it. I'm invisible, I'm gonna sing down. People see what I don't know to call. People can't say me that buzz, running from myself, but how can nobody see it? What if the world cut my lights out? Who would show up to my funeral? What would it mean if everyone's crying now? Praying that I'll be at peace in a place to get seen. I'm the quiet one, but time spent on this earth ain't true to what I want. And I wish it was all in my head, but
I got wasted cause I didn't want to deal with myself tonight. My thoughts get drowned until I feel alright. I keep drinking till I'm someone I recognize. I got wasted.
Myself got wasted again. Up all night with Jack and Jen, trying to have the thoughts running through my mind, sipping heartbreak chase with mental shine. Unopened block laid on the table. Day by day, close to the fatal. This open Bible ain't saving me when it's covered all in this Hennessy. But I pick myself back up, pray to God to look at my cup, held it back, be out the flame, Lord on my side, breaking these chains. See, I never care what people think. Take my demon, pull down the same. How I see things now, it ain't the same. I'm back on track, people know my name.
I got wasted cause I didn't want to deal with myself tonight. My thoughts get drowned until I feel alright. I keep drinking till I'm someone I recognize. I got wasted.
I do this every time. Don't know where else to go, so I drop my weight and ease my pride. Sitting on the bathroom floor way too many times. Contemplating about my life. 13 reasons why I'm white. You had to leave. You were part of me. Now I drink to breathe the veins deep inside of me. Nothing left to hold, but love for you. So for the second, and I take a shot for you.
I got wasted cause I didn't want to deal with myself tonight. My thoughts get drowned until
I'm someone I recognize. I always stay. Every time I look in the mirror, all I see, I used to wonder why it always is. Instead of dealing with it, feeling it, I tell myself I don't need someone. And it's all that I need. I got wasted 'cause I didn't want to deal with myself tonight. My thoughts get drowned until I feel alright. I keep drinking till I'm someone I recognize. I always stay. Another generation now, like bleach to a family tree. She's telling me to pour it out, stop drowning in fermented company. I gotta flush this drama, enrich myself, stop this tainted sweat from trickling down. I gotta toss away this ancient hell and keep it far away from my dear child. Because I didn't want to deal with myself tonight. My thoughts get drowned until I feel alright. I keep drinking till I'm someone I recognize. I always stay.
Donde tu dirección de envío se escribe por sí sola. Donde todas tus pestañas van a donde tú vas. Donde se guardan tus contraseñas. Bienvenido a tu home.
Look, I think a lot's my composure. I think a lot when I'm sober. I try to run away from my thoughts, but I still let the battle get closer. So I drink every night till the morning. I'm hoping the glass will provide me some closure. And I don't want breakfast, so I'll eat that apple and just take a shot on the goal and a couple more because I need that. So my whole family, I'ma clean that so they can stop stressing and worrying about me, even though I know that I would be last. And I'm tired of the lies now. I'm full support and I need that, so I'm gone now. See you all after rehab, cause
I got wasted 'cause I didn't want to deal with myself tonight. My thoughts get drowned until I feel alright. I keep drinking till I'm someone I recognize. I always stay. Got tired of thinking, so I started drinking till I was fully loaded and bloated. My work is loaded. I'm wasted.